is CNN Breaking News.
It's fake news, a hoax, just a lie perpetuated by losers. That's what President Trump said all year long when it came to questions about Russian interference in the U.S. election and whether any members of his campaign had a hand in it. But guess what? PolitiFact says that's the lie of the year. Yes, the claim that Trump has made over and over again, that Russian interference is a made-up story. PolitiFact says that was the biggest whopper of them all. Joining me now from Washington to discuss this is the editor of PolitiFact, Angie Holan. Angie, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You had so many options to choose from this year, so why this one on the top of your list of shame?
Well, it was repeated over and over again by President Donald Trump. He would say it as a defense of charges against collusion, which I should emphasize, we're not saying there was collusion. That's unproven. What we're saying is this Russian interference definitely happened. And President Trump has said several times that it hasn't. Well, it has. And it really goes to the heart of American democracy and our elections and how we decide who to pick to be our leaders in Congress and in the White House.
And his repetition, repeating it over and over again, calling it a hoax, does have an impact. I want to talk to you about that in a minute. But first, the runners-up, right? There were a couple of runners-up we can put on screen. In second place here, Republican Congressman Raul Labrador saying, quote, "Nobody dies because they don't have access to health care." Tell me about this one.
This is one that we were just very dubious about. I mean, there have been studies about whether people have great health care outcomes on different types of insurance, especially Medicaid. But the idea that nobody dies because they don't have access to health care, that's just wrong. And we talked to numerous health care researchers who were just like, yeah, no.
Angie, you went on a trip several different states this year talking with voters about how they perceive fact checks. Where were you? Tulsa, Mobile? What did you learn on these trips?
Well, we wanted to talk to voters who voted for Donald Trump and might be open to learning more about fact-checking, because we've seen survey data that says Trump voters are very suspicious of the media generally, and they're also suspicious of fact-checking. So we thought if we met them and listened to their concerns, we might learn better ways to do our job. They could hear about how we do our jobs and maybe be more open-minded to our reports. And the interactions were very positive. It's like when we get out from behind our computers and sit down face-to-face with people and have a conversation, it works really well. We just have to figure out how to scale that up.
So many people were receptive. At the same time, I don't mean to be a pessimist here on Christmas Eve, but I sometimes wonder if there is a portion of the country that is unreachable by fact checkers. So there's a portion of the country that does not want to hear any of the real news that's negative about the Trump administration. Has that been your experience as well? Has that been your finding?
I think there is a portion of partisans who do not want to listen to independent journalism. They see their political identification as part of who they are. And so, no, they're not open. And I don't think fact checkers are going to reach those people. But our reports might reach their friends, their family, people who could influence them. And what we're hoping to do as fact checkers is just get accurate, credible, vetted information into the hands of voters so they can make better decisions about who they want to support and how they want to see the country governed.
People spreading misinformation or ignoring fact checks, it's not exclusive to one side either. Your site reminded me about that video of Trump greeting a disabled boy at the White House. There were these claims that Trump had snubbed the boy, ignored the boy because he had a disability. I remember J.K. Rowling shared that video with millions of followers, and lots of liberals shared it and thought it was real. You all had to publish a fact check about that one as well.
Yes, we fact-checked that and rated it pants on fire, because if you looked at the whole video, you would see that when President Trump came in, he greeted the boy and gave him special attention. He didn't ignore him at all. But I think that goes to the political polarization. And for the people who have the strongest politically held opinions, they're not willing to give the other side the benefit of the doubt at all.
Yeah, and that is definitely a problem going forward as we head into the midterm election season. Angie, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hey, I'm Brian Stelter. This is Reliable Sources, our weekly look at the story behind the story of how the media really works and how the news gets made. Ahead this hour, Disney buying most of 21st Century Fox. Why is Sarah Sanders saying this could be good for jobs, while Wall Street expects layoffs? We'll get into that, plus stunning remarks by Fox owner Rupert Murdoch, who says Fox's sexual harassment scandals are nonsense. Did he really say that? Former Fox contributor Tamara Holder is here to respond. And later, a story you have to hear about a Mexican reporter who's been detained in the United States. He says deportation could equal death. His lawyer will join me to explain. But first, Robert Mueller is investigating Russia's attack on the American election. But now he is under attack. And this new assault is not coming from Moscow. It's coming from Fox News headquarters right here in New York. And it's coming from the White House. It's an anti-Mueller, anti-FBI feedback loop, claiming that Mueller's probe is hopelessly biased and downright corrupt. Let's cue Fox.
I think what we have here is one of the biggest scandals in American history, where we're seeing, our justice system being used to really change the outcome of an election.
That's from Fox and Friends just today. Now let's cue Trump aide Kellyanne Conway last night.
The fix was in against Donald Trump from the beginning, and they were pro-Hillary.
This is the feedback loop in action. I want you to see it over and over again. Fox, Trump, his aides, GOP lawmakers, all of them, they're taking a legitimate issue, which is the discovery of a Mueller team member who expressed his hatred of Trump in text messages. And then they're blowing it up, trying to discredit the entire probe. Now remember, that team member was removed from the probe when the text messages were found. But every day it's something new, some new reason to claim the special counsel is illegitimate. So as you watch the coverage, try to notice how this works. Notice how right-wing commentators and GOP lawmakers are echoing each other. And pay close attention to the banners on the bottom of Fox's screen. Last night, I can't believe this. Fox is asking if the FBI is engaged in a coup. This morning, the banner said the investigators are in the hot seat. This isn't just an alternate reality. This is a reversal of reality. Obviously, it's Trump world that is on the hot seat. 4 Trump associates have been charged with crimes. 2 of the 4 have pled guilty. Mueller is investigating a massive fire, and everyone can see and smell the smoke. But this, instead, is what the president's hearing.
The only thing that remains is whether we have the fortitude to not just fire these people immediately, but to take them out in cuffs.
That is Jeanine Pirro, one of Trump's informal advisors, not just calling for firings, but arrests. Look, I don't say this lightly, but these FOTs, these friends of Trump, they're talking like propagandists. This sounds like propaganda, and it sounds dangerous. Pirro's demanding a cleansing of the FBI. Sean Hannity's calling Mueller the head of the snake. Other Fox hosts are calling the FBI corrupt and out of control. Rush Limbaugh is describing it as a coup. And guests on these programs are comparing the FBI to the KGB. The conservative media choir is telling Trump that Mueller is out to get you, trying to reverse the outcome of the election. It doesn't get any more dangerous than that. Joining me now to talk about this, Kurt Bardella. He's a former spokesman for Breitbart, now the president of Endeavor Strategies. Hadass Gold, a CNN reporter who covers politics, media, and business. And David Folkenflik is the media correspondent for NPR. Kurt, what is going on here?
Well, I think you're seeing exactly that. Fox News has basically become de facto state-run propaganda. It's state-controlled, state-run television that is beginning its cues directly from the White House. I don't know how anyone can look at what's going on right now and not reach that determination. Trump is creating his own reality. But when you say that, it's not as if the White House is literally running Fox. Or are you saying they are? Well, if you look at the coverage, it sure seems like they are. They have gone so far extreme. I remember the days, Brian, when what you saw on pages like Breitbart were considered the fringe. It was considered so far beyond the mainstream, not even Fox News would touch what was on those pages. Now, Fox is going almost further than Breitbart. And you have right now, at this second, there's an ad running in different markets with Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren advocating and attacking the Mueller investigation.
So, David Folkenflik, do we call this collusion?
I think you've seen an almost total erosion between what you're hearing from Trump administration officials desperately spinning and trying to defend the president, Trump surrogates who appear on cable channels all the time, and the Fox News talent, the hosts, the commentators, the people being paid by Rupert Murdoch and by 21st Century Fox at Fox News. They're offering the same message, and the message is don't look at or think about what may be under investigation. Let's find whatever we can to undermine the pillars of the respect that we tend to confer upon institutions like the FBI and the Justice Department.
You and I have covered Fox News for years. Is it appropriate to call the channel a news channel?
It's such a good question. I think that
Shepard Smith is a journalist. He works for Fox.
Here's what I would say.
Bear is a journalist.
Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say, and I think it's only more true now in the Trump era. I would say that there are journalists, there are reporters, there are producers, there are people who care about the news who work at Fox News. Fox News is not about news. Fox News is about Fox. Fox News is about getting a tonal point of view, making sure viewers get what they think viewers need to get, whether or not that involves much of the time at facts. And you see it, you know it's true because it's true at the most highly rated times of day. It's true for who's being paid, who's being promoted, why are they being promoted. You see anchors who are slipping into some of those Fox and Friend hosts guest slots, and they start to take a sharper tone. They start to take a more kind of incredulous look on their faces. They are pushing out the same message of incredulity about prosecutors, investigators doing their job, trying to look at some very serious issues being raised about the people who are around this president.
So rather than just talk about what Fox is saying, let's watch some more of it. Hadass, watch this clip with me, and then on the other end, talk to me about how the Sean Hannitys of the world communicate with the president. First, this montage.
The FBI is out of control. There are clear, abusive biases at the DOJ and the FBI and Robert Mueller's team.
Pieces of information here that may seem small, but they add up to a pattern of bias.
Unethical political crusaders.
There are more emails coming out to show the bias here.
Mueller's hand-picked minions are a bunch of Trump-hating, Hillary-loving, partisan hacks.
People who hate the president, who have a bias against him, investigating him.
There is inherent bias in the investigation.
It's one giant cesspool. It's full of corruption, partisanship.
We have a coup on our hands in America.
And you can understand where the president can get frustrated.
You can understand why the president gets frustrated if that's what he's hearing every hour of every day. Hadass, what do we know about what President Trump is hearing privately from these hosts? We know what they say on the air. What's going on off the air?
Well, we know that the president loves watching television, and he watches a lot of it every day, and especially Fox. I mean, he watches all media, and he definitely engages in all media, but especially Fox and Friends. It's now become this common trope where we see him tweet something, and then we go back on Fox to see what was said, where he got the inspiration from. But in terms of how he talks to the host, we know for a fact that he talks to quite a few of them. He talks to, first of all, Rupert Murdoch, the head of Fox, on a regular basis. He talks to Sean Hannity. He consults with them sometimes to get an idea on how things are playing out amongst his base and how he should approach things. And we also know, and we have seen, quite a few Fox people who either have ended up in the administration, like Heather Nauert, who is now the State Department spokesperson, or people they have had long discussions with about possibly joining the administration, like Kimberly Guilfoyle or former Fox host Eric Bolling.
So I forgot about that, about Guilfoyle. Yeah.
There's a clear synergy there, and we catch them at the White House going to dinners, just being there for interviews. I mean, it's sort of just become a normal thing to know that the president is talking to these news hosts all of the time, or having them at the White House, where it used to be a big story. We used to have we make a big deal about it if the president was having a one-on-one dinner or talking to a news host all of the time, or maybe more of an opinion host would be a more proper description of it. And now it's just sort of par for the course. Oh, he talked to Hannity again last night.
Yeah.
It's not just a question of the commonality of outlook or some sort of shared thinking in some generalized way. We're talking about a concentrated message. You know, it's the words being used time and again.
Right.
And sometimes the message seems to be coming from around the White House, but I think often as not, you're seeing these Fox hosts push forward messages they want the White House to hold on to grab hold of and to ride. And you're seeing it's not just a synergy, it's just this constant current floating all in the same direction. There are no admission of facts against interest on these shows that you're talking about, and that I think is why it's not news.
On Tuesday night, for example, actually really Wednesday, Fox moved on very quickly from Roy Moore's loss in Alabama. So quickly, Kurt, since you worked for Breitbart, what was your take on the election result? Was Breitbart and Steve Bannon, were they the second biggest losers of the election?
Oh, I mean, after Roy Moore, absolutely they were. And maybe they were even bigger losers than Roy Moore ultimately, because there was such a clamoring from Republicans to say, we need to create distance from Steve Bannon. This is the moment where he needs to step off the stage. What they don't understand is he's not going anywhere. And frankly, it's because of programming on Fox that gives Steve power, that gives him that, he's part of that loop with Trump and with Fox. And as long as that's the case, as long as Trump takes his cues from that type of programming and content, he's going to need them. And particularly as the Mueller investigation, intensifies, and it looks like what they're doing is laying the groundwork to rationalize firing Mueller and ending the investigation.
Kurt, thanks for being here. Hadass, David, please stick around. I got to say one thing before we go to break. Look, the American people, me, you, all of us watching, we deserve to know exactly how Russia interfered in the election last year. That's what Mueller is probing. We and all the American people deserve to know if the Russians had any help. We need to know if the Trump campaign knew about the Russian attack. We need to know if the President of the United States is somehow compromised by a foreign government. And we need to know if he obstructed justice. That's what Mueller is probing. We, you at home, we deserve the answers. And I think all the time we spend thinking about Fox's attacks, it's important, but it distracts from those key questions. Who knew what when? And what are we going to do to make sure it never happens again? All right, rant over. After the break here, more on Fox, more on Rupert Murdoch.
This is CNN Breaking News.
On Saturday, an attorney for the Trump transition team sent a letter to several committees on Congress making the case that special counsel Robert Mueller obtained unauthorized access to tens of thousands of emails that were sent between Trump transition team officials. They make the case that Robert Mueller obtained these emails from the General Services Administration, which supports transition teams with things like email logistics, and that he did not disclose that he had obtained them to those transition officials. Further, that he used the information on those emails during interviews with those officials. Again, there are some tens of thousands of emails that are alleged to have been obtained by the special counsel. They have been exchanged between some 13 Trump transition officials, including 4 top officials. CNN has reached out to the special counsel, but they declined to comment on the story. We also reached out to a representative of the General Services Administration, but they could not be reached. This story just adds another layer on what has been a barrage of attacks on the special counsel from Republicans, some Republicans who are making the case that Robert Mueller should resign after news broke several days ago that there had been messages exchanged between top FBI officials back in 2016 during the campaign that were critical of then candidate Donald Trump. Republicans made the case that those two officials that had since been on the special counsel team had tainted the investigation, so to speak. One of those officials actually left the special counsel before the text messages were revealed. One of them was reassigned shortly after those messages came to light. But again, many Republicans are making the case that the messages reveal partisanship within the investigation, and they've argued that Robert Mueller should resign. Democrats, in response, have made the case that the special counsel is not partisan, that it remains politically independent, though they are speculating that the president is now planning to fire Robert Mueller. 2 Democrats, both on the House Intelligence Committee, made the case this weekend that that was the case. First, Adam Schiff, who was on Twitter saying that he believed that the firing of Robert Mueller would happen before the end of the year. The other, Jackie Spear, also made the case to a San Francisco TV station that Robert Mueller's firing was imminent. CNN reached out to White House attorney Ty Cobb for a statement on these remarks, and he gave us a statement writing in part, quote, "As the White House has consistently said for months, there is no consideration of firing the special counsel." So you have the White House denying that there is any kind of plan to remove Robert Mueller as the head of the special counsel. You have some Democrats that are saying that that is the case, that his firing is imminent. And then you have certain Republicans that are saying that the special counsel is tainted and that Robert Mueller should indeed resign. a complicated situation and one that likely will receive greater focus because as early as this week, you have a White House legal team meeting with Robert Mueller one-on-one, potentially to discuss the next steps in this investigation. Boris Sanchez, CNN at the White House.
And with regard to the transition team emails, we've just received a response from the special counsel's office. It says, when we obtained emails in the course of our ongoing criminal investigation, we have secured either the account owner's consent or appropriate criminal process.
This is CNN Breaking News.
So joining me now to react to Murdoch's comments is Tamara Holder. She's a former Fox News contributor who settled with the company after she reported that she was sexually assaulted by a Fox News executive. Tamara, thank you for coming on the program today. Let's go ahead and play in its entirety, including the question, Rupert Murdoch's comments.
How harmful has the whole raft of allegations about sexual harassment at Fox News been for the business?
It's all nonsense. There was a problem with our chief executive, sort of over the years, but isolated instance. As soon as we investigated, he was out of the place in hours. Well, 3 or 4 days. And there's been nothing else since then. Now, of course, but that was largely political because we're conservative. Now, of course, all the liberals are going down the drain. NBC's in deep trouble, CBS, their stars. I think it's a very interesting subject we go into at length, but there are really bad cases that people should be moved aside. And there are other things.
But did it
which probably amount to a bit of flirting,
Tamara, your reaction?
Well, thank you for having me here, and I also want to thank Yashar Ali for his story where he got all of many of us to speak out. I want to be very clear here. I would not have been able to be sitting here to say what I'm about to say if it wasn't for Mr. Murdoch and what he said, because my settlement, in exchange for money, I had to agree to be quiet, except if I was disparaged or maligned. And because Mr. Murdoch said what he said, that 60 seconds has allowed me to speak out. So what I would like to do, this is not fake news, I want to go through the fake facts that Mr. Murdoch spouted out in that 60 minutes.
The first
to start,
one that
he says
I heard,
it was
Tamara,
all nonsense.
Yeah, and then I heard him say that within 3 or 4 days they fired Roger Ailes. That's not true. It took at least 2 weeks.
Well, right. But let's just start with it. I'll make this really fast. He said it was all nonsense.
We got time.
Okay.
Yeah.
He ruined Fox News, ruined people's lives. He ruined my life. I don't have a job in TV anymore because the place that he has secured down, like Fort Knox, allowed abusive predators to prey on women who just wanted to work. That is not nonsense. This is people's lives. He said it wasn't just Roger. Well, we don't need to name names. We all know that it wasn't just Roger. He said nothing more since then. That's a lie. We also know that Bill O'Reilly paid $30+ million to somebody, and then, of course, they rehired him after that. Largely political. I want to say something. I gave up my law practice to go to Fox News in New York, to work for Fox News as a Democrat, to be a sports commentator, a legal commentator, all of those things. I wasn't planted by Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi. None of us were. We just wanted to work. And when we came out and spoke out, this had nothing to do with politics. This had to do with something that Mr. Murdoch knows every day, and that's called rights. He has rights. He's not worried about anything. He has all the money in the world. He's cool. He has billions. We just wanted to work. That's all we've ever wanted to do was work. And it has nothing to do with politics. He says that there were cases that amounted to flirting. Let me be clear. I had a man pull out his penis in his office and shove my head on it. That was not flirting. That was criminal. That was not sexual harassment. There are no, gray areas, whatever Matt Damon recently said. This is criminal. And I'm not the only case. There are just women who can't speak out. I want to talk about investor sentiment because really this was a conversation about investor sentiment. Either Mr. Murdoch is a liar or he's delusional and old and needs to get out. So if you're an investor, you need to decide, do you want your money with a man who has continued to lie to you for the past 20 years? Your money, hundreds of millions of dollars of your money has gone to settling cases with women over and over and over again. And we've been told that we have to shut up. And that's what we've done. There's just been a little bit here and there, but we can't speak out. And then he blames American lawyers. Well, as a member of the bar, you know, there are plenty of American lawyer jokes. I get it. But let me tell you something. American lawyers don't want to be doing this kind of work. We want to be doing other things besides protecting women in the workplace, which is something that should just be a natural thing. And the last thing I want to say is that I don't want to be here talking about this. I want to be on TV talking about the things that, but we don't want, we want to talk about what we were paid to talk about on TV. That's politics. For me, it was law. I had a sports show. But I'm stuck here talking about this because there are people like Rupert Murdoch who continue to deny that we were abused, that we were just, our careers were destroyed and our lives were destroyed. And this is not political. This is people's lives.
I was thinking about how hard it must be to have to come on TV and talk about being sexually assaulted, as opposed to what you said you'd rather be talking about politics and sports. And I don't think Rupert Murdoch understands that you don't want to be out here talking about this.
You know, there's something else about my agreement, and they'll probably sue me. My agreement said that I couldn't ever apply for a job at any Fox News corporation. I could never work for Fox News or any other place that Fox News owned. Here in Chicago, Fox News owns media entities, or 21st Century Fox. So I am now being punished on top of not having a career in TV. I can't even apply for a job because he allowed me to be abused in his workplace and didn't protect me. And I can't work anywhere now. There's something wrong with me. It's just pain on top of pain on top of pain. And then for him to say something like that that's just so dismissive. There's so many women, Brian, who are hurting. We just want to work. Like I had to do an MDMA illegal therapy to deal with my PTSD because I couldn't function. And thankfully it's helped me, but I just want to work. Like why is he denying this? If he and Bill O'Reilly and everybody else, Bill O'Reilly's on Twitter saying this is political, that's their new line. If this is political, then let's take these cases to trial. I'm down. Let's open it up. You're the ones that wanted to settle. You're the ones that wanted us to be quiet.
You think Fox really might sue as a result of you talking today?
Well, I'm in violation of the contract, except for the fact that I legally have a right to respond if I'm disparaged or defamed. And what Mr. Murdoch said, in my opinion, as a lawyer, not as a victim or a survivor, as a lawyer, is that this gives me a legal right to respond. And I'm responding not for myself, but on behalf of every woman in America who's been abused.
And I'm so sorry to hear about the details of it. I've read about what happened to you in that office, but to hear you have to talk about it, I know how difficult it is. And I also know it's difficult to see Fox try to clean this up, right? Did you see Fox's statement they put out over the weekend? We can put part of it on screen, I think. Yeah. Fox came out and tried to do damage control and said under Rupert's leadership at Fox and with his total support, the company got rid of Roger Ailes, compensated numerous women who were mistreated, trained virtually all of its employees, exited Bill O'Reilly, its biggest star, and hired a new head of HR. By his actions, Rupert has made it abundantly clear that he understands there were real problems at Fox News. So that's what the company statement said, but that's not what he said out loud in the interview. There's a real difference.
There's a real difference. And remember, one of the other things that he did was he got rid of all of the women who were abused as well. And we're still without jobs, and we're perfectly capable. You don't have to like my opinion. A lot of people may not like what I have to say, or they may not like how I look on TV. I get it. But Roger Ailes was good at one thing, and that was finding talent and finding people who were good at their jobs, regardless of the other stuff. And Fox News paid me time and time and re-signed me over and over again, uprooted me from my law practice to New York, and suddenly when I speak out that I was abused, they don't want me anymore. And not only do they not want me anymore, I can't ever work anywhere again. So I would just, as a plea to other networks out there, I'm not making a plea for myself. I'll be okay, but hire one of us. It's nice that we're on to talk about this, but you have all of this talent sitting at home, dying inside. Like, we just want to work. Bring us back. Allow us to do what we did before we were abused.
Tamara, thank you so much again for coming on the program, for sharing this. I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot to me.